Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And with that said, that means Wonder Woman 1984 has been released for HBO Max, and I'll give you my review and thoughts right after the jump. Real quick, if you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Damn it, Patty. So let me put into context before I go into the actual review for this movie where I stand on the DCEU hierarchy of all their films for the recent stuff. The only films of theirs that I can rewatch are Wonder Woman the original and Birds of Prey. Everything else I don't really care that much about, but with Batman vs Superman, Justice League, and Suicide Squad being hot trash, and in the middle there, Man of Steel, Shazam, and that's about it actually. Oh, and Aquaman are all sort of in that middle tier. So that's where I fall on all of that. So it kind of gives you a bridge of how I'm going to go into this film. I was always told to not start off with the negative. So let's start with the positive of this. Gal Gadot, once again, is fantastic as Diana Prince. She's one of the few superheroes in the DCEU that brings the humanity, the morality, and empathy that I think a true hero should have. And she carries it with grace and does a fantastic job once again as Wonder Woman. I am a little concerned that we are anchoring this character to the concept of love so much in two films. Um, Considering we don't do that with any of the male superheroes, and considering that none of the other female superheroes that have films ever bring it up. Captain Marvel doesn't really have that in there. Black Widow, Jessica Jones, like we don't see that. It seems like for the most powerful badass woman in the world, we keep giving her that love, love, love angle, and I hope that of future installments of whatever we get for Wonder Woman, we kind of curve away from that and make her the badass that we know that Diana Prince truly is. One of the bright spots that I did not see coming was Kristen Wiig. I did not think that her being cast in this film made a lot of sense, but she does a fantastic job. There's an arc. She's one of the only characters that has actually a B, and C point arc that works for me in this film, and I think she does a fantastic job of subduing a lot of her quirks of being in comedy and putting forth a valiant and, albeit without the script helping her all the times, dramatic effort that I think needs to be applauded. She does a fantastic job. Chris Pine is Chris Pine. If you liked him in the first one, you're gonna like him here. There's really no good or bad thing to say about him per se, and I won't go into exactly how he comes back. Slight spoilers here. I do question if there's some sort of supernatural sexual assault that occurs, and we sort of just fly by it because love. Those are all the positive things as far as the acting goes. I need to start getting to the negative because this is the only way that I can go. As good as an actor as we all know that Pedro Pascal is, I feel like he's in a very different movie than everyone else in this film. He clearly got a note that said, shoot for 60s monster movie villain, and he went for it. It's a choice. So the first act of this movie is a bit of a slog to get through. After the young Diana sequence, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily need to be there. It's a very unnecessary trope. We've already set up Themyscira. We never go back there. And the point that button is trying to make never gets really brought back up in the rest of the film. So I don't know why it's there. Other than to hide the fact that the next 45 minutes to an hour are going to be a very, very slow burn. And we need to give you something entertaining before we cast you off to sea. The movie crawls until the big highway chase sequence that we've seen in all the trailers. For better or worse, this movie is interested in looking at humanity and the morality and hope more than it is trying to be a superhero film. It's trying to harken back to some of those Donner Superman films. For better or for worse, I think Superman Returns tried to do that as well. But if you want your superhero films to have a little bit more pizzazz, feel a little new, have a little bit more action and freshness, this one's going to miss. But if you want yours to be a little bit more heartfelt and a little bit more hitting home on some morality tales and humanity type of things, this is probably going to be for you. And depending on where you fall on that spectrum is going to decide how you actually feel overall about this film. So the use of the 80s has no value to this film. This film doesn't use any of the nostalgia the 80s brings, no film, no TV, and more importantly, no musical notes from that era. Nor does it actually bring up any of the issues that are happening at that time. So I'm not entirely sure why we decided to drop this into the middle of the 80s. I mean, the only thing that occurs here, and I don't know if this is a big epidemic in the 80s, but the only thing that occurs here repeatedly is that Barbara and, and Diana are catcalled and treated like pieces of meat anytime they enter a room. They're like, oh my God, all the men just surround her. But I don't honestly feel that that's any different than what happens today. So I'm not sure why you chose to do the 80s as opposed to just current day when that point can be brought in either way you go. Unless the only reason you use the 80s, and while I'm not of this world and I don't have the issues with it, but if your purpose to use the 80s was simply to have the oil side story and to stereotypically put people of Arabic descent on screen, yeah, that's a bit gross. My biggest problem with Wonder Woman and why I can never, like, when every time I talk about the original Wonder Woman, I always say this is a really good film with two brilliant acts, and the third act that is a bit of a mess. The third act here is better, but not by much. There is more heart and emotion in this third act, but some of it feels unearned. You don't get to humanize your lead villain in the last 15 minutes and expect me to care. And oddly, breaking of rules that were established earlier in the film. Barbara all of a sudden gets two wishes solely for the purpose that you need to turn her into full cheetah mode, and you haven't done that yet 2 hours and 20 minutes into your film. And walk with me here for a minute, folks. The rules of these wishes. When Max takes the stone and becomes the stone and starts offering wishes, the second that he reverts his wish and releases his wish, all wishes after him that were made through him should also be released. But the only wishes that should still be on the table are Barbara's first wish and Diana's wish, which she's already released. Other than the fact that Patty Jenkins wanted to show a montage of humans all also releasing their wishes, it doesn't make sense. I get the point. It's just silly to do it, because the second that Max releases his, everything should end immediately. I didn't really mention the action in this film because it's very forgettable. I think there are more hand-to-hand combat in this film, but I think it's just edited in a way that just isn't good. And I think the action that occurred in Wonder Woman, which was much more stylized, felt more, there was an emphasis and a point to it, whereas this one is just, there's these long, almost dance numbers of fighting sequences that goes on for a long time, and unless I'm actually seeing everything, and you pull out, let me show everything, it's supposed to cut these quick cuts and fast edits, it leaves the action sequence to be hollow. Also, the action sequence in the mall is utterly ridiculous. It goes on for too long against her fighting four folks that don't really matter, other than to point to just establish her back on screen. I don't see why we're here. Look, I love what Patty did with the first film. I think it was brilliant. I think she definitely deserved and earned a shot to come back and do it again. That movie went on to make so much money and became sort of the, like Black Panther was for black folks, for women, Wonder Woman was that beacon of hope. But there is no way in the second feature film for Wonder Woman she should already feel stale and old hat. And so if we come back to this world, if we come back to Themyscira, we come back to Wonder Woman, we come back to Diana, I think it would be best served for everyone if we get a new pair of eyes and a new director on this, a new female director on this, to give this series a new take and a little bit more life and injection, because I think we're going down a path that I think is setting up Wonder Woman for failure, and I don't think she needs to be there already. So on my scale of play it again, Sam, once is enough, or give me a time stone that I never have to think about this film ever again, I've been going back and forth. I originally said once is enough, but the more and more I sit with this film, the more and more I think about it, I think you need to give me a time stone. so I never have to think about this film again. It is down there for me it's above all of these. It's above Suicide Squad. It's above Justice League. It's above BVS, but it slots in right above those. And I would still get more enjoyment off of watching Man of Steel, Aquaman, or Shazam before I would this, which sucks because I was really looking forward to this one. It's funny. It's funny to me because as I think about it, I think there is a perfect film that exists somewhere in between merging some of the action elements and the superhero and the epicness of Man of Steel with the humanity and morality and empathy of Wonder Woman, and you sort of got a little bit of that. They stuck the landing on that third act for the first Wonder Woman. I think you would have gotten that, and I think we're still all sort of holding our breath, waiting for that, and unfortunately, we didn't get that here. But those are my thoughts. What did you guys think about Wonder Woman 1984? Go ahead, leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that is on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. We also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, which talks about classic films like Back to the Future or Gone with the Wind or Tropic Thunder or American Beauty. Looks at those at the time that they came out and through the eyes of today and see if some of the things that they did and got away with they can do now. Like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.